In previous videos, we have seen how to use this phantom.act to run any action in Phantom playbook, correct? And also we have discussed about a feature called callback, where you can basically chain different actions together, right? And the playbook we have created there. So initially in on start we have ran that geolocate IP, and in the callback we also ran another action called IP reputation over there, right? To chain this after the geolocate IP completes. On that results of the geolocate IP, we ran another action called IP reputation over there, right? Now while doing that, if you remember, we hard coded this parameters value in the geolocate IP, and also we basically from the results of that geolocate IP we accessed that IP address something like this one as a JSON object, correct? Now in this video we will try to see first how we can dynamically access this IP value from the container itself. So we will be using the data access API in Phantom called phantom.collect over there. Okay, now when we talk about the data access in Phantom, so there are two methods. One is the collect and another is the collect to. So if I just see the documentation about the data access automation API, so there are two methods called collect and collect to. Collect to is basically based on collect itself. It's an extension of collect. So where basically we will be able to use in the collect to, we will be able to use the filtered artifact. So maybe when we will talk about the if else block in Splunk Phantom, maybe there as a part of that video I will talk about the collect to, but let us concentrate on collect in this particular video. So the main intention is how we can access the artifact data from the container itself. So before using that collect API in our playbook, let us see first what are the different arguments this particular method collect takes, and based on that we will modify our playbook so that we will pick up that IP address dynamically from the artifact over there. Okay, so the collect method actually takes few arguments called the container. This is actually the container object we will be receiving as a part of. So if I just go back to our playbook, so in the on start method we were basically executing this geolocate IP action. Now in the on start we saw the input called container over there. So in the collect also the first input will be the container name. Now collect can be used to fetch the data from the action result as well. Something like this one. We basically use this, we basically parse this JSON object to get the IP address, right? So today we will see this one as well, how to use the collect method to get the output as well. Okay, so that is a more concise format and I think we should be using that one as well. And let us go back to the documentation again. So the first argument is the container. It could be a container object or it could be a action result object as well. Second is the data path. So data path means we just need to give the path to that particular element of the JSON object over here. Something like this one. We will see this one, artifact, then dot, like in the dot format. Okay, so if you want to know more about this one, understanding data path, so I'll be sharing this link as well over here. The format is something like this one. So we need to give the type. Now this type could be anything, like if we want to access the artifact, it would be artifact, then colon, then the path to that particular value. Now if I want to access the action result, we will do something like this one. So there could be a lot of ways, like even if you want to access the filtered artifact, you can do this one as well. So there are a lot of ways, but in this video we will try to concentrate on two stuff. One is the action result, accessing the action result through the collect method, and accessing the artifact of a container over here. In future videos, whenever we will be encountering these things like the action name artifact or filtered artifact, custom function result as well, we can access it using the data path syntax. We will be covering this one as well as a part of those videos. Now let us go back. So the second argument we saw is the data path. This is basically nothing but the dotted formatted path to that particular JSON element. And the third one is the scope, is something like if I just go back over here and open this particular debugger, we saw this scope over here, right? Like scope of that particular artifact. So let's say like if we just want to run this particular playbook as a part of those artifact which is newly ingesting to our system, then we will be selecting the scope as new. Otherwise we can select the scope as all, so that for all the artifacts this particular playbook will be available, right? So similar concept for the data access automation API as well. So in the collect method you can give the scope as something like all or new, so that whatever artifacts it will be picking up, it will pick up accordingly. So if you just give scope equals to new, it will only access those artifacts which are newly coming to the system, like compared to the when last time this playbook runs. Okay, and there is another input called limit over here, because of this scope, either you can set new or all. It could happen that you will be dealing with more than one artifact as well, and it is more common as well, right? So in that case you can set a limit as well, like how many maximum number of artifacts you want to fetch through this collect method. Now the default limit is 2000, so you can set any numeric value over here. Now there is another input called none if first. So this is an interesting one. Let's say you have a playbook which is running on a container first time. Okay, now it may happen that that container have so many artifacts over there. Now this none if first, actually this is a boolean value. You can say either true or false. The by default is false over here. Now you want to run your playbook only with the new artifacts available. It may happen that the container having more artifacts, but you want to start this playbook only when the new artifacts are available in that container. Now by default, as the playbook did not run on this particular container previously, even though we give scope equals to new, it will always pick up all the artifacts over there. Okay, so this is the default behavior of Phantom playbooks. Now to override this particular behavior, what you can do is you can set this none if first as true. So what will be happening is, it will, instead of container creation time, basically when playbook picks up all the artifacts, it basically see the container creation time, and if playbook did not run on that particular container after the container creation time, it generally picks up all the artifacts over there. But to override this one, we can set this none if first equals to true. So what will be happening, it will be taking the last playbook runtime as the reference time. Okay, so the first run, what will be happening is it will not pick up any artifact over there, but from the second run onwards, as we have already run the playbook once on this particular container, so it will be taking that particular value, and whatever artifacts coming after the first run, it will take those artifacts as a scope equals to new, and then it will work on those artifacts over there. So that is the concept behind none if first input over here. Now by default it is false. That means it will, if the playbook did not run on that particular container previously, it will pick up all the artifacts over there. Now with this concept, let us try to make a change to our playbook, the demo playbook we were working on before, correct? So I will go to edit playbook. Now over here, so our intention is to make this particular IP address not hard coded. We will basically take this IP address from this container. Now let us try to see, because if you remember, we were working on this particular event, right? So if I just go to my event over here, so this was the event with this event ID 2. We were running playbook so many times over here, right? And if I just go to the artifacts tab, so this is my artifact we will be accessing, right? And previously we just hard coded this particular value in our playbook. Now we will try to access this particular source field from this artifact for this particular container, correct? So how we'll be doing it? So first thing we need to do is, let's say we'll be creating a variable called IPs over here, and we will be using this phantom. If you see, we have imported this phantom.rules as phantom over here, and we'll be using this collect method over here. Now the first argument is the container. So if I just go back over here, the first argument is the container. So this container I will pass this container over here, correct? And the second argument is the data path. Now let us try to see how we can access this artifact over here. Okay, so as we have seen in the documentation of understanding data path, for artifacts the syntax is something like artifact, this is the keyword, then colon, then the path to this particular artifact over here. Okay, so now let us try to copy this artifact over here. So then colon, now here you need to give the path to that IP address field, right? So if I just go back to our artifact over here, so we want to access this source field over here, correct? Now the artifact label is this one, so the syntax is something like this one, label, then dot, then we need to access this source field. Now for this one you need to understand the JSON object behind this artifact. So as you remember, when initially I introduced artifact in the introduction video, I have described the artifact, the container, everything as a JSON object over here, right? So this is how a typical artifact looks like. So we have a ID, version, name, label, then we have a CEF fields. So these are the fields available as a part of this artifact. So whatever we are seeing it over here, these details, all these field names, so these are nothing but the CEF fields over here. Okay, and if we see the JSON object, I just downloaded the JSON object from here itself. So if I just, let me show you. So if you just go over here and click on these three dots, sorry, over here, these three dots, you can download this artifact JSON over here as well. So that is the same JSON, I have downloaded it, and there is a key called CEF, and under that CEF all the fields are available. If you see the source, the severity ID, message, all these fields, we just need this source field, access this source field over here, correct? So whenever you want to access the artifact fields using data path, only this particular stuff, this particular key are available as a part of data path. You cannot access this ID, severity, other fields using the data path. Only the CEF fields will be available using the data path syntax over here. Okay, so the syntax will be something like this one. So let me go back over here. So here the first thing you need to give is the label of the artifact or type. You can use two things over here. So if I just go back, my artifact label is this one, correct? And my artifact type is event. So either you can use label or you can use type. Now whenever you will be using type, you can use regular expression over here as well, but here also you can give regular expression. Let me show you. First let us try to access it through the label name itself. So by providing the label name, you will be only accessing those artifact value where we have this particular label over here. Okay, so label name dot CEF, as we have seen in this particular JSON structure, CEF dot source. So this is how we will be accessing it, CEF dot src. So this will be our value for the IP address over here. Okay, and we will keep other arguments like the scope. We'll give scope equals to all, and limit and none if first we will keep as is, the default one. Okay, scope equals to all. So this is how you will be accessing the IP address. So first let us try to see how this particular IP address looks like. Okay, now for simplicity purpose, what I will do is, for now I'll just comment out this printing of this action success, whatever we have seen it in the previous video. I'll keep the, okay, I'll anyway container we are printing it over here. Result I will keep it. Now I will remove this stuff as well, filtered result. Anyway, these are all none value, custom and handle as well. Okay, and that's it. So let us try to see first what this particular IPs looks like. So as we have learned before, we will be using phantom.debug to print that one, correct? So IP is over here. So let us try to save this playbook. We'll say dynamic access to container. Okay, and I will reuse this command for now. Save it. I will be opening this playbook debugger over here. As you have seen, our our container ID is 2. That is what we were working on. 2 scope equals to, I'll set all over here, and I will be clicking on test over here. So let it run, let it complete. So it will basically run 2 actions over here. One is geolocate IP, and as a part of geolocate IP callback, it will run the IP reputation as well, right? So these 2 actions it ran successfully, but let us try to see whether it has printed the IPs or not over here, correct? So the first thing is it will print is the container, which is this particular JSON object over here. And if you see, if I just take it, this one, so once we have called this particular collect method, so it basically printed this particular one, right? So collect method called with all these inputs over here, if you see it, and if it is finding any artifacts, it will say found 1 total artifact over here, and we try to access the IP address field over here, correct? So this is the IP address field over here. Now we are able to access the IP address successfully from the container over here. Now one thing is, here if you see it in the artifact, data path, I have just given a single data path over here, right? So you can pass a Python list as well, list of data path as well. So accordingly it will print those stuff as well. It will access those values as well over here. Okay, now let me show you another stuff. So if I just go to edit playbook, now I have hard coded this particular severity ID, this level, right? Artifact level over here. So instead of that, you can pass the star as well over here. So let me do that one. You can pass the star as well over here. It will have the same effect, but in this case, it will access all the artifacts, all the artifact levels. So if you have more than one artifact with this source field over here as a part of the artifact, it will basically fetch all the artifacts source field over here, and it will basically build Python list over here. Okay, so I will save it for now. Now let me open this debugger again just to see what we got. So we got a Python list over here with that IP address value, but over here if you see it, when we are trying to call the geolocate IP, we need to pass it something like this one, a Python list of dictionary, where the key name of that particular dictionary is, each dictionary will be IP over here. So from this data, basically now we need to construct this guy over here. So it will be very simple. We just need to loop through it, correct? So I'll be edit playbook. I will loop through it. So for IP in IPs, so what I will be doing it, so I will be basically creating a, let's say I will create a empty list first, param, because we need to pass the list of dictionary over here. So param, so I'll write something like param dot append. We are appending to this particular list over here. So what we will be appending? We'll be appending a dictionary called something like this one. Okay, the dictionary key will be IP, and the value of this key will be this IP over here, whatever IP we are getting it from this IPs, correct? So but basically this particular value over here, so that is what I will be doing it over here, IP. Okay, so once I have done that, so if I just print the IP, this param now, so if I just say phantom dot debug param over here, so let us try to see that. I'll be saving it. So let us test it out. Test. So let it run. So it has successfully run these two things. Now if you see, so this was the actual IP we were accessing from this one. So basically this is the IPs. Now from here we basically created a list of dictionary with this format, correct? So now we can just use this particular param over here. Okay, I'll go to edit playbook again and I will pass this particular param over here. Copy. I will paste this guy over here. Okay, so this will become, so this is how we are basically dynamically accessing the artifact from this container and passing it to this geolocate IP. And before passing, we are basically constructing this list of dictionaries so that it can, this geolocate IP can understand that one and process that one over here. Now let us try to test it again. So ideally it should work the similar way. It should be able to successfully run this geolocate IP as well, and it should generate this particular result, and then it should run the, as a part of callback, it should run the other IP reputation as well, right? So let us test it out. So if you see it over here, it basically ran two actions over here, geolocate IP and the virus total IP reputation successfully. And in the geolocate IP, it successfully generated this particular IP address. That's why this particular result also created by the geolocate IP as well, with this, all this data like the source, IP address source and everything over here. Okay, and this is the IP address we basically initially passed hard coded. Now we are basically pass it through the container over here. So this is how we can use the collect method on a container to access the artifact. Now let us try to use this same method to access the action result as well. So we are now going back to the callback method. So as a part of this onStart, in the onStart geolocate IP action, we basically created a geolocate IP callback method, right? So there we are actually running another action called IP reputation, and while doing that we are accessing this result, whatever result we have seen it over here. So this is the geolocate IP action result, right? So from there we are basically accessing this particular IP address and passing it to the IP reputation, right? So now we will be using the collect method to get this IP address over here. Okay, so we will do in the similar fashion. So I'll go to edit playbook. I will create a empty param list, whatever we have seen it before. Now I will be using this one, phantom.collect method, whatever we have used it before, but now instead of container I'll be passing this results. So as I initially explained, in the collect method, the container input either you can pass as a container object or you can pass a action result object as well. So that's why I'm passing this results object over here. Okay, now in the data path also, whenever you'll be working on the action result, the data path is little bit different over here. In the container, when you are trying to access the artifact, we were writing something like artifact : the JSON path, right? But whenever we will be trying to access the action result, so let me try to open this one now. Now previously what we have done it, we basically accessed this results object, which is nothing but the results object over here. Now inside the results object, we are basically checking the action underscore results, which is nothing but this guy over here, right? So which basically holds the action result over here. So now whenever we will be trying to access through the the collect method over here, so this is how the syntax will be. So if I just remove this, so if I just remove this over here, so instead of artifact, so if I just go back to the documentation in the understanding data paths, so for data path for the action result, it is action underscore result. if you see it over here. And the syntax is something like action underscore result dot the corresponding JSON key names over here. There is no colon over here, even though in the documentation it is mentioned something like this one, but ideally we should be like, actually we should be doing something like the full, we just need to give the full path name over here. So I'll be giving something like action underscore result, okay, then dot, let's go back again to see the result object over here. Now whenever we will be giving action underscore result dot, now internally what Phantom will be doing, it basically it will basically parts this whole results object, and it will try to find the action underscore results key. It will map to this one. Okay, so be aware that whenever you will be trying to access the result object using data path, you need to give action underscore result over here, not the results. Internally Phantom will be doing the mapping over here. Okay, so action underscore result dot, we want to access this IP address over here, correct? Now inside the action underscore results, these are the keys, right? The data, then status, message, summary, then parameter, right? So our IP address is inside this parameter, so I'll be copying the parameter, okay, dot IP over here. So this is how we'll be taking the IP address over here, and it will be having similar output. So it will be a Python list. Okay, so then we will be applying the similar concept over here to create this particular list of dictionary over here, correct? So I will be doing this one over here. Okay, so once this is done, so I will be passing this param here as well. Okay, param. So I will save this particular playbook now. So if we have done everything correctly, so now also this IP reputation should successfully fetch the IP address from the result object and run this IP reputation over here as well. Okay, and if you see it, Phantom was able to run both of this geolocate IP and the IP reputation over here with this particular parameter. That means it was successfully able to fetch the parameter from the geolocate IP result object, and it is executed successfully the IP reputation object action over here. Okay, so this is how we can use the phantom.collect method to access the container object as well as the action result object in playbook, Phantom playbook. In future videos we will talk about the collect to method as well, but before that we will try to see the Phantom if and else block over here, Phantom condition block over here. Okay, so hopefully this video was helpful. See you in next video.